What's going on, guys? This is Mosen here with MTA 38 for the 19th of November 2018, and we will talk about a couple of things today. And first of all, we're gonna have a look at the US and the EU forums, and also I'm gonna talk about main and alt character combinations and synergies. Now, let's talk about that one first, actually, and then jump into the forums later. Also, I bought a couple of things in Booty Bay. That was a good tip. This is like a side note here, right? You can buy the heavy spiked maces in Booty Bay for 60 silvers and resell them for a gold. But yeah, a lot of plans and recipes you can buy here as well. There's a lot of stuff you can flip if you want. Mug life. Alright. Now the first topic of the day is going to be main and alt combinations, okay? And what that means is you can, or I wanted to give out the tip that you maybe, or tell you that you can actually think about what mains and what alts you're going to have on official classic servers, and how that's going to influence the way that you're going to play. And what that means is basically you want to choose the professions and the characters of your main and alt a little bit more careful than just going with your gut feeling whenever the servers come out and you wanna and you are about to make a new character, and then just jump into the world, and then suddenly you realize, oh well, I've picked a mage with mining and leather working because I thought that was a good idea, or just I'm a tailor now and an enchanter, but I never really wanted to. I'm not really an enchanting guy, and I just realized that all these recipes that I need to make that happen are very expensive, and I'm not really the guy that wants to farm that kind of stuff. So here's my tip. Of course, the main, first you choose the main that you have and you want to play. Okay, so that would be, let's just stick with my example, okay? Because that's better to explain for me and makes it easier for you to understand, I think. So I want to be a main tank. I'm gonna be the main tank, and I'm gonna be a warrior. So I want to be a prot warrior. So that's the main. That's the thing. That is going with your gut feeling. Play whatever you like, what you want to play, what's good for you. And then, since I'm going to be a prot warrior, you can already tell that farming is not going to be a very easy task for me. Okay, so while it is still possible, and you can just equip some fury gear and everything, it's not the most efficient way. And since I am like a person that likes to play up alts anyway, this is something that I will consider and having an alt, right? And that is something that I'm definitely going to do. Now, if you don't really like playing alts, I still recommend you get through it and get one up. If it's through boosting, or you play something very simple, having two characters just significantly increases your ability to make gold, to advance your character in many ways. Because you have all these effects that you can, send stuff over and items over and craft stuff yourself. You save gold on tips and all that kind of stuff. Now, for me as a prot warrior, I want to have something that A, I can farm with, right, and B, that isn't terrible in while doing that. It's not a complete victim if I'm farming something out in the world. So what I want to have, since I personally love playing paladin, and I always wanted to have a paladin, so I'm personally going to make a character that has two gathering professions, and it's supposed to be a paladin, and I want to play red anyway, so I'm gonna be, I'm gonna have a red paladin as an alt. So that's going to be fine for me, because I know how to play it in world PvP, and I know that I can technically beat any class 1v1, so that's perfect for farming. Alternatives would be, for example, a hunter, or a Shadow Priest. I thought about a Shadow Priest, for example, or a Mage, and those are things that are good classes for having gathering or farming characters, because you want to be able to sustain yourself. You don't want to have a class that is absolutely gear reliant, or but you want to have a class that is mobile, that has one or two tricks up their sleeve, and can technically beat anybody in a one-on-one situation without being completely gimped. Now, if you take as a comparison a holy priest with gathering professions, then you're going to be running around, and of course you can heal yourself. I get that, but what happens if you're picking that node and you don't have your shield up at the very second, and the rogue comes and ambushes you? So I think you kind of get the point and the idea. So choosing the main and alt classes and professions is pretty important. So since I want to have an alt, my idea, for example, was what worked really well for me. I tested this already. Have your first alt that is going to be likely the most geared alt that you have. Now, if you have a DPS main, you want to have a gathering profession maybe on that one. Although you might want to have, goblin engineering or anything to maximize your DPS, or you just want to pick a different profession. So you want to pick the two gathering professions that worked for me. This is a very good tip for people that don't really like crafting professions altogether. So this worked for me. Picked mining and herbs and put it on your first alt that's likely going to be more geared than others, or at least on an alt that can sustain itself. For example, a hunter or a shadow priest, etc. That is very good in open world PvP, because you will need to contest a couple of nodes, obviously. Now for me, this paladin I was talking about is going to be quite geared, because I plan on ranking with it too. And then I'm going to run around with the gear that I have on the quite geared alt, because it's the first alt. Running around the world, and I actually have good gear stacked onto him, which is good for contesting a world PvP, obviously. And then you can pick every herb node and every mining node that you find, and the key is that you bind finding minerals and finding herbs to keys, and then you can swap around between those. Pick keys that you can actually reach quickly, and you can switch between those two while you're riding around Burning Steppes, Eastern, Western Plaguelands, Winter, Spring, wherever you like to farm. Now that way you can actually have and then basically you gather everything up, send it over to your main, and craft stuff, right? And one more thing that I found is my main is probably going to be Enchanter and an Armorsmith, because I will need all the recipes for the guild. I'm gonna stack it and then make it for free for everybody. So I'm gonna stack the recipes onto my main, and that means I won't have any alchemy character. So what you can do, to max out a profession, you need to be level 35. So what you could do, for example, is you level a third alt, right? If you're like mediocre crazy, you can level a third alt to at least 35, spec or get all the get the profession up to 300, like alchemy, which is fairly easy to level, because you can just send over mats basically, and sit in the main town and craft stuff. And you can unlock the transmute recipes. Check earlier MTAs for the secret transmute recipes you should get. I was talking about fire or undeath to water, or you just stay old school with the Arcanet bar transmute, and then you can park that alt in a city and send over everything. Now the key to this is, of course, you can also have a third 60 alt if you enjoy playing that, and then make a fourth alt with, yet another profession. The key, the idea behind this is, gotta kind of love this, is that you want to utilize all the professions stuff. Like for example, on a leather worker you can use your salt shaker, or on a tailor you can have a moonclaw city, so that whenever you're running around and you're getting stuff and you're looting stuff, you can send the stuff over to one of your alts, utilize it and make money out of it. And this is gonna make a lot of money, like a lot of money. This is basically taking everything you have and making a buck out of it. So that was my, personal tip for today. Because I thought that was a thing that I always do in every server, and that's why I never struggle with gold. It's not for everyone, I understand that. And if that's not your thing, and you maybe just don't have the time to do that, that's absolutely fine. Just keep in mind that usually you have like one main and a gathering alt, and the rest just you park it in a city. It's just for logging over and utilizing the profession. But yeah, I hope that kind of helped you. And even though leveling can be kind of hard in vanilla, maybe you can think about doing that, and maybe it will help you. Somebody contact me. Then let's jump into the good old forums, and it's one on the US forums, and coming in from Mithun, and he's from the guild Power Word Awesome. I mean, to tell you a lot. And he's saying, I'm wondering how Blizzard plans to handle swapping specs in WoW Classic. Although the nostalgic feeling is great, I think there could be issues. Especially since the Horde, they don't have paladins. I mean, that's gonna cause a lot of issues. I mean, it's been a big issue that they don't have salvation, right? Also, leveling as a healer is brutal enough. Personally, I enjoyed and recommended patch 3.1 version with dual spec. What are people's thoughts and opinions? People's thoughts and opinions are probably the ones they always are. Though, we don't want a dual spec, we don't want an LFR either. But anyway, let's jump into this, because just saying no is pretty easy, and we can tell this guy, maybe we can help him. I recommended patch 3.1 version. Surprised they didn't listen, but we don't want to be too salty. And here come a couple of responses, and basically saying, if you're good enough on either a healer or DPS, it won't matter. And this is absolutely the key sentence here. Let's scroll up a little bit. I get the idea that a lot of people will come in, and I've seen this from, a friend that started later because he was a little bit younger, and he said it started later in the game. And basically what he was always saying is that he wanted to have, it's like, I can't play vanilla, and I want to play a healer, but I can't, and fuck man, it's just, I need dual spec in the game, and without that, man, I just can't play it. And I get it, it might seem a little bit stupid at first, but the thing is, this is what makes it great, and it's not as obvious, because, okay, you're a healer and leveling is brutal. I get that, right? I get that it's of course you're not killing stuff is easy, but the solution to this is grouping up with others, and that's exactly what makes Classic what it is, right? You can't just run around solo and then you're a healer, but now I want to kill stuff, I'm just gonna press this button and now I'm a DPS, and I'm just gonna continue on my own again, and alone, and will not have to talk to anybody, and I'm just fine on my own. Now I want a DPS. Now I want to heal again because the group needs a healer. I'm just gonna switch to healing again. I didn't really commit on the role, and I'm not really a very good healer, but I'm in a healing spec, so now I can say you're the bad DPS. And the key is you are not committing to a role, and this is what makes it great. You can always have off gear, and you will have to have a compromise, right? You're not going to be a very good DPS, but you can equip DPS gear, and you can farm on your own if you like, if you have to, if you really have to. And that, you have to group up, you have to talk to other people, and you have to commit to your role. And this is kind of the key point. You'll maybe make an alt if you're a healer to have a DPS class to farm. The exact same thing that I was talking about earlier, right? So, and there was another good reply, I think here, it was where the same guy, Aka Raven, a Raven, was that, he basically said that, You know, this is, oh yeah, here. The only good thing, let me scroll up a little bit. The only good thing about current and changing to whatever at any given time is that if you are bored at waiting, you can change specs. And if you're bad, you can change specs. And if your DPS sucks because your item level also sucks, just change to tank or healer and blame the other for not being good enough. Trust me, it happens. I see way too many DPS or intellect tanks and LFG, LFR, and too many who join as X-Spec but decide against it, like those druids who join as a healer and sit in feral form with agility gear. Exactly, and that's what you know, a couple of also German YouTubers, if you know them, have pointed out correctly. In theory, you should, you know, this class could be able to heal. That makes the class eligible to queue as such a healer, and that's also a thing that we really shouldn't have in vanilla, is that, you know, you can just change into whatever and you don't even need to be good at it, and because you didn't commit and you don't know what's going on. And trust me, if you play healer, if you commit to the role of a healer, you will be able to beat people outdoors in the world at 101, because you know you're going to outlast your opponent and you will play a little bit different. Of course you're not gonna one-shot things, right? But if you as a healer group up with one good DPS, you can be so much better than just DPSing stuff alone and farming. You'll make more gold because you'll heal the DPS and sustain him, and he'll do the damage. This is part of the whole synergy. But yeah, I think everybody gets it. I'm just, you know, one guy says no changes, but wait 2 years and then post this, and then we'll see how many people switch over and say, I cannot live without dual spec any longer. And then for the last one from the US forums, coming in from Jeebus Jones, and it's a short shout out for all of you Oceanic players, if there's anybody here watching. He says he's really looking forward to Classic and its social immersion. I am planning on playing in a group of leveling in Classic, so anyone in my region, I'm probably doing that absolutely wrong, and that's absolutely cringe for anyone from the Oceanic region, and I apologize for this, is with the same mindset. Feel free to post on here. He's looking for people, and I wanted to give this shout out because I think that's absolutely fine, and I know that Oceanic time zones always struggle with kind of finding people and finding guilds. So get in contact on the US forums below this particular thread for Jeebus Jones. He's looking for people to maybe level and maybe, you know, form a guild, you don't know. And I wanted to give that shout out, so that is given. And there's actually a couple of people that want to join in on that. So if you are from the Oceanic region, go ahead and contact Jeebus Jones. This has been MTA 38. I thank you very much for watching. Stop by the stream if you get a chance. And aside from that, whatever you're doing, stay hyped for Classic. It's only 8 more months. And, you know, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.